The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Listen, my son, to your father's instruction, and do not forsake your mother's teaching.
How are you doing today? Well, I hope everybody's having a good day, continuously praying the rosary, getting closer to God, being more divine. And that's basically what you should be doing, as I am doing, as I do all the time. I keep praying the rosary, go to church, do penance, and follow God's ways. Because if you follow God's ways, He will take care of pretty much everything that you need. Today I wanted to go over a couple passages in the Bible. This is going back to the time of Abraham in the Old Testament, and talking about Sodom and Gomorrah and how that whole story came about, for the most part. I mean, it's an intricate story. It's relatively long, and most people's attention span is not that long, so I try to make it short and sweet and to the point, so you get the message that I'm trying to get across. So I'm going to put on this speaker thing from BibleStudy.com, which is a very nice tool to use, because this person speaks a lot more eloquently than I do, and I want you to understand, because that's the whole message, is to try to get the information across to you. So here we go.
And the Lord said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now, and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me. And if not, I will know. And the men turned their faces from thence, and went toward Sodom. But Abraham stood yet before the Lord. And Abraham drew near and said, Wilt thou also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Peradventure there be 50 righteous within the city. Wilt thou also destroy, and not spare the place, for the 50 righteous that are therein? That be far from thee to do after this manner, to slay the righteous with the wicked, and that the righteous should be as the wicked, that be far from thee. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? And the Lord said, If I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I will spare all the place for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord, which am but dust and ashes. Peradventure, there shall lack 5 of the 50 righteous. Wilt thou destroy all the city for lack of 5? And he said, If I find there 40 and 5, I will not destroy it. And he spake unto him yet again, and said, Peradventure, there shall be 40 found there. And he said, I will not do it for 40's sake. And he said unto him, O, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. Peradventure, there shall 30 be found there. And he said, I will not do it, if I find 30 there. And he said, Behold now, I have taken upon me to speak unto the Lord. Peradventure there shall be 20 found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 20's sake. And he said, O, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak yet but this once. Peradventure 10 shall be found there. And he said, I will not destroy it for 10's sake. And the Lord went his way, as soon as he had left communing with Abraham. And Abraham returned unto his place.
Okay, that was the finishing of Genesis 18. Basically, that's Abraham, or Abram at the time, negotiating with God. And it's interesting how it went from 50 all the way down to 10. Now, this is what happened afterwards, because God had sent 2 angels to Sodom to investigate what's going on with Sodom, because he was trying to find out. God already knew, God knows all, but he sent the 2 angels to kind of go in there and really warn Lot. And so here we go with the Genesis.
Genesis 19. And there came 2 angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, And he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, Behold now, my lord, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly. And they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have 2 daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. And they said, Stand back. And they said again, This one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place? For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out, and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the man laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them, O not so, my lord, behold now, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy which thou hast shown unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. Behold now, this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. O let me escape thither. Is it not a little one, and my soul shall live? And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth, when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt.
So those are the 2 passages I wanted to go through. And so basically this is what happened in regards to Sodom and Gomorrah. God became very angry in regarding to what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. And if you see in Genesis 19, the 2 angels came to Sodom, and they were kind of investigating the Sodom And like I said, God pretty much knew that he was going to get rid of Sodom and Gomorrah. He just had to negotiate with Abraham and give him Abraham had to give him the permission to God, because God gave us dominion over this earth. So then God had to ask Abraham for the permission. And an example of how dastardly, how terrible Sodom was, is when these two angels came to Sodom, and these people, young and old, told Lot to get these two guys out because they wanted to get to know them. Now, what they meant by want to know them was they wanted to have sex with them. See, apparently these two angels were very good looking, and then these people, being so dastardly, they wanted to have sex with them. And Lot, knowing that these were angels, he even offered up his own two daughters that were virgins as compensation to these low-life men. But they just decided they wanted to have sex with these. They decided they wanted to have sex with these angels. Well, they thought were men, and they didn't care about the two daughters that Lot had. I guess they probably knew what Lot had already, right? Because then Lot had been living there, and the two daughters were there. But they were taking fancy in regards to these two angels, and then later on, the angels came out with these men, and of course they were angels and had power, and they blinded them so they couldn't see the door. And so it's kind of ironic. These guys these men, crazy, dastardly men, were going to get their way, supposedly, but surprise to them that these angels blinded them and they couldn't even see anything. And that's when the angels were saying to Lot, we got to get out of here. And then Lot was saying, well, I can't go all the way as far as you want, but let me go to this other smaller town because I can get there. And then the angel said, okay, we'll give you that caveat, and we'll grant you that wish so you can go to that town was called Zor. So just what I'm trying to get to in this whole particular passages is that God has his limits. God has his limits, and he had reached his limit with these two towns called Sodom and Gomorrah. And as we become in today's society, as we become more and more dastardly, more and more evil in regards to this homosexuality, people not going to church, taking a prayer out of the schools. The fact that people they're not being conscious with their sexuality in regards to chastity. People not getting married and having children out of wedlock. All of these things are piling up against God's ways, and God is getting to his limits. So we have to heed these particular stories. And that also happened in the times of Noah. And I wanted to also talk about Noah, but I'll talk about it some other time. But that's another example of God having his, reaching his limit and putting the wrath down on society. So we have to heed God's ways. We have to worry about staying on the narrow path. And that's why I always start every time I do a video, I always state that, hope you're praying the rosary, going to church, and getting closer to God, because that's what God wants. God wants worship. He wants us to be faithful and obedient